What do you envision for a franchise owner? How many vans would they have that would suffice for a territory, and how big is a territory?
So we did a lot of thinking about this because obviously I have made mistakes and sold
Haven't
too
we all,
much.
Yolanda?
Oh
Haven't we
yeah,
all?
for sure. We know that the vans territory, you can do up to 12 vans.
Up to
You can
12
do
vans.
more than that, but you can do up to 12. It just really kind of depends on what that franchisee is looking for. And I'm real particular and I ask those questions because obviously we definitely want to have some that have at least 12 in their fleet because we know what the number can produce. But, I think it's going to be based on what do they want as far as for their family going forward. Because Taxi Mom for me, I raised my family on Taxi Mom.
Hmm.
I'm one of those that you get so connected in an identity way with your business that it's hard to figure out what your exit plan is going to be.
Sure.
And I've heard some of your podcasts where you talk about that.
Hmm.
And so it's really given me a lot to think about when it comes to Taxi Mom and then Taxi Mom franchise, and then we have Taxi Mom families. So, I definitely think about the future and what I want to see in a franchise owner. That's super important. But most of our franchise owners are women. Most of them come from corporate, and most of them are looking for a service like Taxi Mom. So why not buy one? Because I thought when we first launched the franchise, I was thinking how hard it was going to be to get out there and really, go after it. So when we launched in September, that night that I went live on Facebook, the very next day I had an application. And it was somebody that had been watching and
Okay.
she had been waiting and she was chomping at the bit. So she's my very first franchise owner.
And where's she? Where's her
She's in
location?
Forney. She's in
Okay.
Forney. Hmm.
Okay. And of your franchise locations, the majority of them are in Texas,
Yes.
right? And then Florida's the
Yes.
other one. Yep.
Hmm.
You mentioned Taxi Mom families. That
Yes.
I want to talk about the foundation that you've created because it's such a noble cause.
When I first started, I always got calls about, do you take CCMS? And CCMS is like a state funded, I think it's through TWC. But what they do is they give families money, and it's not like scholarship. You have to apply to get it. I never could qualify to become a part of that group. And I never could find out why. And it was because I'm not a daycare.
Hmm.
And I didn't want to get in the daycare business just to get it to help these families. But I do get calls all the time on, do you take CCMS? And, I'm like, well, no, I don't. And I have tried to figure out how to get in there, but I can't get in there without being a daycare. So we decided to start a fund ourselves because we get so many families that need the help. And we do price reduction, we work with all of our families. My husband died in 2011.
Sorry.
That was part of the reason why it took me a while to franchise because it was a sudden death. He had a heart attack. My daughter and I have always talked about a foundation in memory of him because he was one of the drivers and he helped build the business.
Oh,
So we had decided to start our own, and we started our own 501c3, came in. We knew that, people were going to be suffering from the pandemic,
hmm,
as far as being able to put things in place for their kids. And so I came in and I said, it's time. It's time for us to create something. And I wanted it to be transparent because I didn't want all the families to think that, oh, well, we're going to be making a lot of money, like our franchisees thinking
right.
we're going to be making a lot of money from this fund. But no, everybody's limited because we're brand new, so we're raising funds all the time to help fund some of these families. In fact, one of the families that we are funding, it was listed in the Wall Street Journal. She came out and talked about Taxi Mom just recently, and she even gave a picture of herself and her family and talked about, how we helped her family. And that's super important to me just because I was a mom that needed help.
Hmm.
When you're an entrepreneur and everything weighs on you, you make too much to get the help, but you don't make enough to get the help. and you're
Which
right there in the middle. So that's why we created it. We also help fund families that don't even use Taxi Mom. They can use a competitor. We have a lot of mom and pops that are competitors, and as long as they're LLC and they meet the requirements and they carry commercial insurance, we will help fund those families as well.
that really is something else. I think that your mission, you realize, is much bigger than just Taxi Mom.
Yes, absolutely.
Let me go back to your franchisees now. How do you help them with getting customers?
Well, everybody's always calling corporate, that's for sure. But we wrap our vans. So wrapping the vans is huge
Hmm.
because it's a lot of word of mouth. But I do go to like Chamber of Commerce. If they ask me to come out to help them do an event, I will get out there and go help them. They've asked me to come out and do observation drives. And I've gone out there with them and just being out in the field with them because that's super important for them to know that you're with them every step of the way.
Hmm.
So there's so many things that we do. Like I said, we had our Taxi Mom University and I asked for their input. I want to know what's going to help them to be successful. Like we have the technology that it's a SaaS based company. So we have the portal to support us and everybody registers, everybody goes through the flow of how the business is supposed to go through. But we also do like training, lots of training. But when they ask us, hey, can we do this with our portal? Can we add this to our mobile app?
Hmm.
I take everything in and I'm always doing all that technology piece for them so that we can make sure that, they have the things that they need to be supported.
Sure. We want to streamline the business as much as possible using the
Oh,
technology, right? So they can focus on growing the business.
and ours is made from scratch. So I knew, with the 15 years that I had before
Hmm.
franchising, I knew exactly how I wanted my business to work for me. So I just wanted to make sure that I duplicated that. And so we digitized everything. Everything's digitized.
Let's elaborate a little bit more on the training as a new franchisee. What can I expect?
Well, they get about 10 weeks of training. They have to come into the office, and it's a lot of portal training, teaching them how to use the portal from the registration process all the way to when they receive their payments and how everything is connected. We go over W-2s, 1099s,
Hmm.
IRS, because a lot of them come in and they don't know what a business is, like they didn't know that they have to pay taxes on, Texas Workforce Commission, that additional tax in with IRS, So we come in and we teach them all of the ins and outs of the business to make them successful, even what to look for in a customer, what that customer avatar looks like.
Mm.
So, and they take a lot of notes, but even if you get the 10 weeks of training, you're still not going to know just because there's so much that's in the technology itself on the portal. But we even have cash flow in our portal. And then we just linked up with Architect. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but it's a
Mm.
tech stack. And our developer had to write a bunch of different APIs because of the complexities of our portal, because we have it all the way down to a route. So, and we even have route expenses on there for when the driver can take a picture of what they just spent on the gas, they upload it and we can see it for each route.
You created the software from the beginning. You didn't obviously take it off, buy something off the shelf because you started back in '04. Like when I started back in '03, we built our
Right.
own proprietary software. My bet is though, if you had started the business today, like if I started it today as well, probably would have done some sort of mix mosh of stuff off the shelf because it's just too expensive to build it from scratch
Oh yeah,
today.
I know. I asked my guys here, I asked them, I said, so how much do you think this would have costed me today?
Oh,
And they said, oh, easy, that's $600,000.
for sure. That's a big difference maker though between you and another service because teaching your franchisees how to pick up children is one thing, but you're really teaching them the business of Taxi Mom. And if your franchisees are anything like they were mine, a lot of them, this is their first go around in owning a
Yes.
business. Like you were saying, you're teaching them IRS rules and what's a 1099 and what's a W-2. A lot of us, when we start out in franchising, we don't realize on how much we need to go all the way back to step one. Like, here's what the business is. Here's what it's not. Here are some of the regulatory things. We think, oh, I need to just teach them how to pick up kids, how to do routes, how to run a sports league. That's that's the advanced part of the business.
Yes. And, that's super important. I think an IFA at the emerging, everybody in franchising is super, super like knowledgeable. And the first thing that they say is, it's all about the franchisee. And I think anybody that's getting ready to franchise, they need to understand that it is all about the franchisee and it is all about that support. And it's not about you anymore. It's about your brand and it's all about the brand. So there was a lot of leniency that I gave, like, oh, we can get our shirts anywhere and have them monogrammed, but now that it's expanded and gotten more, as we get more and more franchisees, that process is really starting to stick with me on the brand, because
Sure.
it's not about Yolanda anymore. It's not about Taxi Mom anymore. It's about the brand in itself.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fumey, or Emerging Franchise Group LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.